My daughter used my company name to host a charity gala, then funneled the funds into her own account. I didn't say a word, just sent the footage to every board member and the IRS. The next gala was hosted by me. What happened was really unexpected. I will tell you how it happened. There was a time, not so long ago, when I would have handed Ava the keys to the entire company without so much as a second thought. She had that kind of presence. The kind that could light up a room, command attention in board meetings, and smooth over any awkward silence with a perfectly timed joke or well-placed compliment. I used to watch her work a crowd and think, she's got the best of me. And maybe that was the problem. Maybe I saw too much of myself in her. Or maybe I only saw what I wanted to. My name is Raymond Caldwell. I built Caldwell strategies from a folding table and a rotary phone in a studio apartment, scraping together marketing contracts and favors from college friends who owed me more goodwill than I probably deserved. 32 years later, it's a multi-million-dollar consulting firm with clients from Wall Street to Silicon Valley. But none of that came easy. Every dollar we earned was sharpened with long nights and frayed nerves. I missed birthdays. I missed anniversaries. I missed parts of Ava's childhood I'll never get back, all in the name of building something that could outlive me. Ava used to come to the office after school. I'd clear a corner of my desk, set up a spare monitor, and let her play with the spreadsheet colors. When she was 10, she helped me redesign our logo on a free website. I still have it printed on the back of my business card. We used to laugh about it. How someday the company would be hers, and she'd have to explain that hideous serif font to serious investors. They'll just think it's vintage, she'd tease, flipping her ponytail like a teenager who already knew the world would bend for her. She grew up, got her MBA, worked under another firm for a while, something I insisted on. I wanted her to earn her scars elsewhere before walking through our doors as more than the boss's daughter. And to her credit, she did. When she finally joined Caldwell full-time, she came with glowing recommendations and a Rolodex of contacts I couldn't have dreamed of at her age. She had vision, drive, the kind of social savvy I never had, which worked in our favor during client dinners and industry events. And yet, I still carried this flicker of doubt. A father's instinct, maybe. A twitch in my gut when she smiled too wide. I ignored it. I wanted to believe I was just paranoid. When she approached me about organizing a charity gala under the Caldwell name, I felt nothing but pride. She pitched it as a way to give back, to highlight the company's commitment to social responsibility. "We've made it, Dad," she said, hand resting on mine. "Let's act like it." Her eyes sparkled, and for a moment, I forgot every long night and missed moment. I just saw my daughter, the bright, brilliant culmination of everything I'd built. I told her yes. Of course, I told her yes. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. Ava handled nearly everything: vendors, venue, catering, press. I stayed in the background, like a proud parent at a recital. When I offered to help, she brushed me off with that charming confidence. "Let me take this one, Dad. You've done more than enough." I took that as growth, as leadership. But now I see it differently. I see it as a curtain. The night of the gala was perfection. Candlelight shimmered across crystal tableware. Our logo was projected against the walls in soft gold. People I hadn't seen in years, investors, politicians, old clients, shook my hand and praised Ava's elegance and forward-thinking vision. She gave a speech. She wore a white dress that floated like smoke. She raised her glass and said, "This is for all the futures we can change if we remember where we come from." And I believed her. I stood at the back of the room, my heart full and my name shining from every banner. It felt like a passing of the torch, like a legacy being honored. But that was before the numbers stopped adding up, before an accountant flagged a discrepancy that probably wasn't anything serious, before I started pulling reports myself and noticed the silent siphon. A new account. Unexplained transfers. Vendor invoices paid to shell corporations. It wasn't much at first. A few thousand here, a few thousand there. Just enough to slip past busy eyes. But I wasn't busy anymore. It started with a florist invoice. Ava had told me the decor budget was tight but tasteful. Those were her exact words. And when I walked into that ballroom, I believed it. White orchids spilled from every centerpiece. Floating candles lined the stage. Even the bathrooms had custom-scented candles and frosted glass holders. It looked like a Vogue spread. But the invoice that crossed my desk 2 weeks later told another story. $68,000 for floral design? I murmured, scrolling through the PDF again. I'd seen weddings done for half that. I called the vendor listed at the top, some boutique operation I'd never heard of. No answer. Just a voicemail with a robotic voice and no company name. That's when the buzz in my head started. I didn't panic. I didn't even call Ava. I just opened my laptop and started digging. Cross-referencing expenses, pulling bank transfers, looking into the other vendors listed under the gala's budget. One by one, I found similar patterns: companies with no web presence, invoices that looked copy-pasted, payments routed through odd intermediary banks. A lighting contractor billed $42,000 for ambient upgrades, but had no online reviews, no business license I could find. The catering company had a real website but didn't list gala-style events in its services. Their receptionist said they'd never heard of Caldwell Strategies. By the end of that night, I'd poured myself a second scotch and opened a private folder on my desktop labeled simply Gala Audit. I told no one. Not yet. The next morning, Ava breezed into the office like nothing was wrong, wearing a cashmere coat and holding a smoothie that probably cost $20. "Dad," she said, her voice sing-song sweet. "Guess who got invited to speak at the Stanford Leadership Summit?" I looked up from my screen and offered the faintest smile. "That's great, honey." "You okay?" she asked, pausing with just a flicker of hesitation. "Just a lot on my plate," I replied, tapping at my keyboard, trying to figure out some of the gala numbers. "Oh." Her tone didn't shift, but her eyes did. Just slightly. A flicker. "Everything should be in the budget packet I sent over." "I'm sure it is," I said, not blinking. She left my office 2 minutes later. That smoothie never made it past the halfway mark. She left it sweating on the corner of my desk. Over the next week, I brought in someone I trusted more than my own blood, Louise, my original bookkeeper from the early days. She'd retired 5 years ago but owed me a favor, and she was still sharp as a scalpel. We met at my house under the guise of catching up. I handed her a thumb drive and asked her to take a look, unofficially. She returned 2 days later, pale and wide-eyed. "She built a funnel," Louise whispered, shaking her head as we sat across from each other at my kitchen table. "Real basic stuff, makeshift LLCs, dummy vendor names, offshore account as a sinkhole. Amateur hour, honestly. But she knew enough to hide it from your day-to-day systems." "How much?" I asked, though I already had a sinking idea. "North of $400,000. Could go higher depending on what was claimed as legit but actually funneled. I'd need full access to know for sure." I leaned back and stared at the ceiling. My ears buzzed. My fingers twitched. "She did it in my name," I said, more to myself than Louise. "She used my company to steal $500,000 from people who thought they were donating to children's cancer research." Louise said nothing. She just reached across the table and touched my hand. That night, I didn't sleep. I walked the halls of my home barefoot, the wood floor cool beneath me, listening to the creaks of old age in the walls. Everywhere I turned was a picture of Ava. Graduation photos, family vacations, her first day at the company. I stared at her smile, the way she leaned into me, the way her eyes lit up when she was getting away with something. Had it always been there? What haunted me most wasn't the money. It wasn't even the betrayal. It was how much she reminded me of myself when I was her age, hungry, restless, willing to bend a rule to get ahead. But I never stole. I never violated the trust of those who believed in me. There's a line. There's got to be a line. And Ava? She danced over it in heels and pearls. I didn't confront her. I didn't yell. I didn't give her the satisfaction of a dramatic showdown. Instead, I copied every file, recorded every suspicious transfer. I started making quiet phone calls, to legal, to the board, and finally, to a discreet contact I had at the IRS. By the end of the month, I had everything I needed. Her face still smiled from our website. Her bio still called her a rising star. But beneath the surface, the machine had already started turning. The wheels of consequence were slow, but they were moving. And the next gala? That one was mine. There's something about betrayal that doesn't settle all at once. It seeps in slowly, like cold through a cracked window. You keep telling yourself you're fine, that maybe you misunderstood, that they couldn't possibly mean to hurt you like that, not your child. But then the truth lays itself out so plainly, you realize it's been there the whole time. You just didn't want to see it. I remember sitting alone in my office late one night, scrolling through security footage from the gala. Not because I needed more evidence, I had plenty, but because I needed to understand. I needed to see it on her face. And I did. In the quiet, grainy footage from the kitchen hallway, I saw Ava in that white dress, whispering to a man I didn't recognize. She handed him an envelope. He nodded, tucked it inside his jacket, and left through the service exit. She smoothed her gown like it was just another night. I watched that moment 10 times. Not because it shocked me anymore, but because it cemented what I already knew. She was deliberate, calculated. There was no slip-up, no panic. She executed the theft with the kind of calm I'd once admired in her during high-pressure meetings. And now, I saw it for what it was: cold, efficient dishonesty. So I got to work, not as a father, but as the CEO of the company she tried to use as a Trojan horse. I called in every favor I had left in this industry. People owed me. People respected me. When I told them I needed their silence and cooperation, they gave it without question. We traced every wire transfer, every forged invoice. I hired a private forensic accountant. We built a timeline so airtight, even her most expensive attorney couldn't have poked a hole through it. But I didn't take it to court right away. No, I wanted something cleaner, more poetic. I scheduled a new gala, under my leadership, fully audited, above board. This time the charity was real, the vendors were legitimate, and every dollar raised would be accounted for down to the penny. We kept it quiet, no flashy press releases, just quiet invitations to the people who needed to be there: the board, our top-tier clients, a few friendly journalists, and representatives from the IRS. Ava didn't know. Not at first. Then the invitations started circulating, and I knew someone would forward one to her. A week before the event, I got a call from her personal number. I let it ring. She didn't leave a voicemail. 3 days later, an email arrived. Subject: really? So this is how you want to play it? After everything I've done for the company? For you? You couldn't even give me a chance to explain? If you go through with this, we're done. Completely. I stared at the message, feeling something inside me die a little. Not because of the threat, but because of the gall it took to write it. She hadn't apologized. She hadn't even denied it. All she cared about was being exposed. She didn't know the half of it. The night of the gala arrived, and the ballroom shimmered like it had the first time. Only this time, the beauty didn't feel like a mask. It felt earned, honest. We served modest wine, not $300 bottles. We skipped the ice sculptures and focused on stories from the families we were helping. The room buzzed with warmth, not pretense. And then, after dinner, I took the stage. I didn't give a long speech. Just a thank you, a few words about transparency, and then I nodded to the AV team. The lights dimmed. A slideshow began. It started with innocent moments, photos from the last gala, Ava smiling beside donors, hands clasped with guests. Then the numbers began to appear. Expenditures, vendor breakdowns, side-by-side comparisons. Next, the video clips. Ava with the envelope. Ava slipping into the back hallway. The crowd grew still. And then, the final image. Her mugshot. Gasps rippled through the room. A few people turned away. One woman near the front dropped her wine glass. I looked out over the crowd and said simply, "This is what it looks like when trust is abused. Not just mine, but yours." Silence. Then, applause. Slow at first, then rising. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt clean, like I'd just walked out of a long, bitter storm. Later that night, I stood by the exit shaking hands. Some people offered condolences. Others offered silent nods of respect. No one asked where Ava was. She was already where she needed to be. The morning after the gala, my inbox was already full. Messages from board members, clients, even a few former employees I hadn't heard from in years. Most of them offered a strange mix of condolences and congratulations, as if they couldn't decide whether to mourn what had happened or applaud how I handled it. But I wasn't interested in praise. I didn't want to be admired. I just wanted the bleeding to stop. The local paper ran a story by noon. CEO exposes daughter's embezzlement in live gala reveal. Of course, they ate it up. It had all the ingredients: family, Scandal, money, public humiliation. They even used a side-by-side photo of Ava smiling in her white gala dress and her booking photo, which had surfaced thanks to the quiet tip I'd given a reporter the week before. By the next day, it hit national wires. Ava was arrested that afternoon. She didn't go quietly. I later learned from someone on the inside that she screamed when they came to her condo, kicked the door, cursed the officers, claimed she was being framed. She kept saying, "He's doing this to punish me. He's my father." And maybe she was right about that. Maybe part of me did want her to feel punished, but not out of spite, out of necessity. Because some lessons, especially the ones that cut deepest, can't be delivered gently. They have to sting. They have to bruise. When the news broke, the rest of the family began calling. My sister, my ex-wife, even my estranged brother who'd once borrowed $250,000 and never paid it back. Suddenly, everyone had an opinion. "She's still your daughter," they said. "You didn't have to ruin her life," they accused. "Couldn't you have handled this privately?" Privately. The word made me want to laugh. Ava didn't commit a private betrayal. She did it on stage, in front of cameras, with donors and clients watching. She used the Caldwell name like a weapon, a shield, and a blank check. She made her choices in public. I merely turned on the lights. One call hit differently, though. My ex-wife, Rachel. She wasn't yelling when she called. Her voice was tired, measured, wounded in a way I recognized. "She told me you were overreacting," Rachel said quietly. "Said it was just a budgeting error and that you were trying to destroy her." "Did you believe her?" I asked. "I wanted to," she whispered. We sat in silence for a moment, letting that ache settle between us like dust. I remembered the early days of Ava's childhood, the way Rachel used to smooth her hair with slow, careful strokes after brushing out the tangles. The way she stood beside Ava during every school play, clapping louder than anyone else. "She's scared," Rachel said finally. "And angry. I think she really thought she'd get away with it. She almost did." Another pause. "What happens now?" "She faces it," I said. "She faces all of it." The fallout at the company was swift but manageable. The board held an emergency meeting. I presented everything: documents, video, timelines. No one contested the facts. Some suggested a PR firm to soften the messaging, but I refused. The only way forward was through transparency. Our next client memo laid it out clean. Yes, Ava Caldwell committed fraud using company resources. Yes, legal action is being taken. No, this does not reflect the values or direction of Caldwell Strategies. And because we were first to own it, we survived. But surviving isn't the same as healing. The next few weeks were strange. My phone stopped buzzing. Invitations stopped coming. I became the man who turned in his own daughter. And while some respected that, others didn't know what to do with it. Some whispered. Some distanced themselves. One of our clients, a powerful venture firm out of Chicago, quietly ended their contract without explanation. I didn't fight it. Let them go. I walked the halls of the office with new eyes. Every corner felt heavier. Every photo of Ava on the walls had been removed, but their absence echoed louder than her presence ever had. I started noticing the little things again. How the new intern flinched when I spoke. How Louise left tea on my desk each morning without a word. How silence settled in conference rooms like a second guest. But the work remained. The company endured. And so did I. Late one night, weeks after the gala, I sat in my office and watched the footage again. Not the slideshow. Not the mugshot. Just a quiet clip of Ava walking through the gala crowd, smiling, waving, basking in the spotlight. She looked like she belonged there. She looked like a future I used to believe in. But now, all I saw was the cost. After the applause died down, the world went quiet in a way that felt almost cruel. No more headlines. No more calls. No more emergency meetings or reporters fishing for a soundbite. The scandal had run its course, and like vultures who'd already picked the bones clean, the public moved on to fresher meat. But I stayed right there, stuck in the wreckage, sorting through the debris of what used to be my family. Ava was out on bail by then, under house arrest and wearing an ankle monitor like a trophy she refused to acknowledge. Her attorney was good, sleazy, expensive, but good. He'd managed to delay the trial and paint her as misguided, rather than malicious, emotionally overwhelmed, instead of calculating. But the evidence was ironclad. The best he could hope for was a lighter sentence. She was going down. The only question was how hard. I didn't visit her. I told myself it was to protect the case, but the truth was, I didn't think I could sit across from her without breaking either into rage or into tears. Neither felt acceptable. Instead, I sent her a letter. Short, simple, brutal. Ava, there is nothing left to explain. The facts speak for themselves. You chose this path. All I did was reveal it. I hope someday you understand the difference. Dad, I never got a reply. My sister, Dana, came by the house around that time. She brought wine and Thai takeout like we were still teenagers sneaking snacks after our parents' bedtime. She didn't speak at first, just set the bag on the table and poured 2 glasses like this was a normal night and not a post-disaster check-in. You look like shit, she finally said, flopping onto the couch. Thanks. She took a sip. You gonna cry or explode? Because I need to know what I'm in for. I chuckled, but it caught in my throat. Neither. Just existing. We sat for a while. She didn't press. That's what I always appreciated about Dana. She knew when to dig and when to shut up. Eventually, though, she leaned forward and said, "You were right. But I still can't believe you did it. Do you think I enjoyed it?" "No. But I think part of you wanted to." I didn't answer. Because maybe she was right. Maybe a part of me had wanted to make it hurt. To make it unforgettable. To remind Ava and everyone else what it meant to cross a line with me. After all, I hadn't just exposed her. I'd choreographed it, staged it, broadcasted it. But not because I was petty. Because I was done. For years I had looked the other way when Ava cut corners, when she manipulated people into getting what she wanted. I'd written off her ambition as fire, her entitlement as confidence. And all the while, I had been complicit, silent, weak. So yes, maybe part of me wanted to punish her, not just for the crime, but for the years I spent denying who she really was. "She's your kid," Dana said after a while, voice softer now. "You raised her. That doesn't make this your fault, but it does make it harder." Harder didn't even begin to cover it. Harder was hearing from old friends who now spoke about her in past tense, as if she were already gone. Harder was seeing the pictures I'd once loved and now couldn't bear to look at. Harder was knowing that no matter what happened next, whether she went to prison, walked free, or rebuilt her life, something between us had died, and I had killed it. But sometimes, killing something is the only way to survive. The company's reputation stabilized, slowly. Some clients returned. Others didn't. But we didn't collapse. I hired a new compliance officer, instituted new financial safeguards, held ethics trainings. I made damn sure nothing like this would ever happen again, not on my watch. And still, I caught myself watching the door some mornings, expecting Ava to walk in with her coffee and her smile and her 1,000-watt charm. I'd blink, remember, and go back to my work. One afternoon, I got a package. No return address. Inside was a small silver key and a note in Ava's handwriting, for the storage unit on Oak. "I'm not coming back for any of it." That was all. I drove there the next day, half expecting it to be a trick. But the unit was real, and inside were the remnants of a life interrupted. Clothing, awards, framed photos, old journals, even the hideous dress she'd worn to the first gala. All of it sealed in boxes, labeled and stacked with clinical precision, like she was already erasing herself. I stood in that cold metal room for a long time, staring at the life she had abandoned. And I realized then, I wasn't angry anymore. I was just tired. The office was quiet, the kind of quiet that only settles in long after the chaos has passed. Most of the team had gone home, the hum of evening traffic a distant murmur through the glass. I sat alone in the corner office, lights dimmed, a cup of cooling coffee by my elbow. I wasn't working. I wasn't even pretending to. I was just sitting. On my desk sat a photograph, a recent one, taken after the second gala. It was a candid shot. Me shaking hands with a guest, eyes tired but steady, posture proud. In the background, you could see the slideshow paused on the final frame, just the company logo in stark black and white. No frills, no faces, just the name. My name. For years, I built Caldwell Strategies with the hope that one day it would become a legacy for my family. I imagined Ava leading meetings, expanding offices, maybe even raising her own child in the same way I tried to raise her, flawed, but fiercely devoted. I wanted to believe that legacy meant blood, that it meant passing something down, not just building something up. But I was wrong. Legacy isn't inheritance. It isn't a name carved into a building or printed on a business card. It's character. It's reputation. It's how the world remembers you when you're not in the room. And Ava, for all her brilliance and potential, had tried to turn that legacy into currency, something to trade, to exploit, to use as cover. I couldn't let her do that. I wouldn't. The charges were finalized a week later. Embezzlement, wire fraud, money laundering. Her attorney worked out a plea deal. 5 years, with eligibility for parole after 3. She'd served time in a minimum security facility. No orange jumpsuits or concrete beds. Just a quiet place to sit with what she'd done. A place to think. I didn't attend the sentencing. I watched the live stream from my office. She didn't look at the camera once. Some nights, I still dream of her as a little girl. Running through the hallways of the old office in socked feet, dragging her stuffed penguin behind her. She'd sit on the floor next to my desk, coloring with a handful of broken crayons, and ask me questions about everything. What's an invoice? Why do people wear ties? When will I be the boss? I used to smile and say, one day, sweetheart. One day. Now, I understand the danger of building dreams on assumptions, of mistaking proximity for preparation. I handed her power before she earned it. And when she failed, I had to choose between saving her or saving what we stood for. And I chose me. That's the part most people don't talk about. The loneliness of choosing yourself over someone you love. The clarity comes at a cost. It strips you bare. Makes you question if you're cold, or cruel, or simply resolved. But here's what I know. With a kind of aching certainty I never wanted, I did the right thing. Not the easy thing. Not the popular thing. But the right thing. A month after her sentencing, I got a letter. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting instantly. It was brief. You made your point. Loud and clear. I don't know if I'll ever forgive you, but I understand now why you did it. I wish that counted for something. Ava, I folded the letter neatly and placed it in a drawer. Maybe she would change. Maybe not. That part wasn't up to me anymore. I looked out at the skyline, lights blinking in the distance, the city carrying on without notice of one family's unraveling. I took a long breath and whispered to the empty room, this is still mine. My name. My legacy. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't ashamed of either. If this story gripped you with its raw emotion and unflinching honesty, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done in this father's place? For more deeply personal stories of betrayal, boundaries, and resilience, stay tuned to the channel where every tale cuts close to home. See you soon in the next one.